Hello everyone, my name is Fatima. I'm the founder and CEO at Metaskool. With me today is Ryan Pinto, who, having taught children with special needs, in particularly autism and ASD for 5 years, says it's nothing but passion and inclination with which he, as a behavior therapist, has guided families in home-based programs, has taught one-to-one children with special needs, and even taught at the Center for Special Education at Indian School, Muscat, where he took a music class and conducted outdoor games and sensory input activities. And so, armed with a certificate course in verbal behavior from the CEIEC UK and the Portage Home Program System UK, he is ready to aid families in the desire to get their autistically challenged children off the ground in their areas of need, namely language, social skills, appropriate behavior, and relevant academic skills. Hello, Mr. Ryan. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be here today.
Yes, looking forward to our discussion, and I'm really hopeful that the families definitely will reach out and will find something useful in what we discuss here today. So you have named the discussion, Who Powers My Challenged Child's Communication? Beginning with our first question, why have you so entitled our discussion like this today?
Well, yes, I entitled it this way because I would really like us as caregivers, teachers, parents who are on one side looking at the child whom we want to reach and somehow aid in his coming out, as it were, of his condition. It could take a short time of a few years, sometimes it will be a lifelong process. But it is that we look positively at the process and take ownership. This is what I always would advise, and this is my attitude, that we as caregivers, as teachers, and as therapists, in people with the inclination to intervene and teach, to take the responsibility to see that the child in small steps, pigeon steps, or whatever is his capacity, to learn the skills that are required. And we have to take the responsibility that as much as I maintain an environment of consistency, with which the child will not escape, but will cooperate with us based on our reinforcing, enthusing, and rewarding him. These are the things to keep very, very much in mind, and then have full faith in the child's ability, because autism is nothing but a few blocks, that are manifest after a year or two of the child's life, but they have to be overcome. The intelligence is as much as any child. There is no lack of intelligence. This is what we believe, and this is what we know when we interact with these children. We know their level of intelligence, we know their level of interest in things, except the blocks. And so we have to hold their hands, and help them overcome these challenges and see the goal in mind. So that's why I entitled it this way, that, who empowers? It's like, in the old days, we would have watching a program on TV. It was sponsored by this company. Today, when we are on the internet, we see powered by. So we are the sponsors. We are the ones who are stepping in for our autistically challenged child. And we believe fully, like the sponsor believes fully in the production. We believe fully in his coming out, in his getting off the ground, and we are the ones to power him, to get him off the ground. And in time, he is going to fly. He is going to do very well and achieve what he was made to do in life. So yeah, that's
so that's a point well made, Mr. Ryan, and very insightful. In fact, when you state that the intelligence specifically that it is, you need to have faith. And when you say that who powers, and it's not just the onus doesn't just lie on the therapist or maybe just the family, it's a whole chain that has to be formed. So the therapists, the caregivers, the families, they become one unit, and that's how they can overcome even the challenge of communication. So Mr. Ryan, in your opinion, what is the difference between language and communication? Are they both the same thing, or there are some differences? How would you define each of them in this context?
Yes. So communication is an experience, whereas language is a tool. Now, communication is, you see, in all animate, all of creation, animate, like animals, even the higher species, monkeys, even our pet, our dog, and more so human beings, it is an experience where whether one uses language or not, one is communicating by gestures, by signs, by facial expressions, by a mood, by joy, laughter. These are forms of communication, whether it's an emotion from within, but it's the beholder is always understanding what you're going through, even without you using words. But on the other hand, language is a specific tool using words in the particular language. Yeah, so it's limited in a sense. Secondly, a language changes with time. The English language, maybe a couple of thousand years ago, when it was just taking formation, was far different from what it is today. Also, a language in certain continents, like English spoken in the Far East, is far different from the English spoken in Africa, for example. Maybe 200 years ago, the use of different words from other languages have come into English. So it's constantly changing, whereas emotions, joy, happiness, sadness, the body language will forever remain the same. It transcends time. It transcends races, regions of the world, and people do understand when we are desiring to communicate. Even you don't speak the same language. For example, the language of love. The baby, as an infant, when it's just born, maybe 1 month old, even 6 months old, it's not got any language, but the baby is constantly communicating. On day one of its birth, it's crying, and within a few hours, the mother knows the difference between this cry and that cry. So the reason I've just put this as a question today, as something we're looking at today, is because let us appreciate our child we accept he's challenged, but his desire to communicate, we have got to appreciate that and start from there. We don't compare him with other children his age, say 2 years or even 3 years or 5 years, who have language, who've got other skills. But let's start from what he has and build on that, because he has been communicating, he or she has been communicating from the time they were born. Mother has understood that, and only after 2 and 3 years is now looking at other peers, looking at other siblings, looking at other children, maybe classmates, and comparing. So these are the finer things to be aware of in our relationship with them. Let's be aware and say, we start from what he or she is giving us, the signs, the signals they're giving us. There is so much of hope, so much we can do, because the language is always built on the communication and not vice versa. With the neurotypical, any person, a child or an adult, it's the communication from which we build language. And if we stop to think, analyze, and look the amount of communication there, what is a tantrum? What is a meltdown? What is things that we call bad behavior? He is or she is telling us, because perhaps we have overlooked once, twice, 10 or 20 times, they're communicating. We're looking for higher language. But why did we not? Because we did not know. Now we've diagnosed the child, and now we know that he has a label. But he has been communicating from day one. Let's take a step back and appreciate he did tell us in his own way. Now we will start from there. Though weeks, months have passed, we're going to start from there and show him that we are taking his cues. And language is going to come one day. Whether, we only with consistency. And I cannot say this, I cannot underscore this more. That, like the world says, nothing succeeds like success. But I tell you, from my experience and those who work with children, everyone will tell you, nothing succeeds like consistency. Maintain consistency, and you're all talking the same language. Everybody who intervenes in this child's life is talking the same language. If not, if we break in one moment, one occasion, one place, one person, one moment in time, one location, one arrangement, if we break it even one link, that's where when we can success is taking a few steps back. You see, so if we want to see success, consistency is something that we have to maintain 24/7. Let's do the best that we can to maintain it. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say in communication and language.
So consistency, you say, is the key over here. And it's a very insightful thing that you say that, communication comes first and language is built after that. Whereas most of the families, they feel that, oh, my child is not able to speak a certain language. So they get very disheartened. They stop exploring. So I think, and as you say, that the child must have been communicating right from the beginning, and maybe the parents were not aware. So I think the consistency, the awareness, and starting very young are the key points that you're making here, Mr. Ryan. So Mr. Ryan, we all know that there are certain behavior traits when it comes to autistic children. So what, according to you, is that specific behavior, and how can we analyze it in children with special needs?
Yes, so behavior, by definition, it is the way in which one acts or conducts oneself, usually in a certain circumstance, and especially towards others. So it's like how we say, just look at the way he or she is acting. Is what we're trying to indicate is what's coming across, not only verbally, but verbally and in their communication, as we just discussed. What are the cues? These are sometimes we're saying that's too much. It's or he's not, or on the other hand, he's not even. There's no response. Has he even heard? So has it made an impact on him? So it's behavior that we are demonstrating in a certain circumstance and in response to another, like a teacher and a child situation, a boss and a subordinate, parent and child, between friends, relatives. Behavior is something that indicates my response. Now, sometimes we lack. So, there's one thing that I always, when we're dealing with children, what we used to say is, when one lacks the skill, what is usually displayed is behavior, in quotes, behavior. So he's overreacting. The child is, when he sees this academic, the writing, or if he sees math, or if it's outdoor games, or it is music, or it's anything, he's throwing a tantrum, or he's running away. Or when it's time for, even at home, when it's time for studies, there's excuses. We just 5 minutes more, or whining, or taking long at the dinner table, or not coming to his studies. So basically, it's these signs that the parent will see that no, I know you're playing up. You're just finish your task, move to the next. So it's avoidance that we see. It's in children with special needs where where they lack language, it's meltdowns, it's tantruming, it's maybe even throwing things, maybe pushing. These some signs of aggression we see. This is the behavior when the child lacks the skill, the simple skill that we call simple, of language. When there's a lack of one skill, like for example, in the if you're waiting in the line at to buy a ticket, and it's very often we would see that somebody, if the line is it looks like it's a mile long, people from the back are shouting, hurry up, they don't have patience. So if there's if you're not getting your way, like for example, even at the office, a boss who does not have the patience with his subordinate, he takes out his tension on him, and so he raises his voice, he shouts. So that it's when there's some skill that's lacking, obviously we don't go and tell a boss, look, you lack, but we know inside, okay, he's got a short fuse. I better alter my behavior so that he doesn't take out his frustration on me. So these are the signs that we read when one lacks the skill. Whether you're superior, you're the down the line, whoever it is, you some other behavior comes out. Now, this is what we want to pay attention to, not to label a child who's challenged, but to say he's lacking the skill. These are the things, these are the signs and the cues. It's my responsibility. Like I said, who powers the child? Powering the child is one of the primary steps is observation. Observe him keenly, minutely. How many times is he tantruming, for example? At the drop of a hat? Or does he give me a cue? Once, twice? Is he able to give another person the same cue? That's his language. Let us pick up on this. Rather than 5 or 6 times he gives a cue, we are not joining the dots. We are not giving him the benefit of the doubt here. So it's a lot of powering comes from one of the primary steps, which is observation, acute and minute observation. Yeah. So often it is referred to as typical. Yeah, when it's observed as a repeated way of behaving in a certain situation. If there's when the child doesn't like vegetable, the greens, the broccoli, he just, or sometimes there's a certain texture in the food that it's not going well. A child can take 2 hours to eat. Why? Because the food just remains in the mouth, and even though he's being fed, it's not like, okay, sometimes we read it wrongly. Oh, he wants to be fed by this one or that one. But perhaps the texture, sometimes it's too, whether it's spicy or it is too, or sometimes a garment, which it could be too hot, it could be too prickly. These are the signs that we just see tantrum, but we don't realize that he's giving a cue. Behavior is telling us that this is discomfort. It's a sensory issue in such a case. And the second matter is analysis of the behavior, where it's called ABC analysis. Yeah? As a caregiver, as a therapist, as a teacher, as a parent, we're going to look at the child's behavior, and A stands for antecedent, where we need to have been keen enough or observant enough to know what happened in the preceding seconds, preceding minutes. For example, somebody comes over, the doorbell rings, okay, it could be anybody, but the moment the child sees X, whoever it is, maybe a particular visitor whom he's not familiar or he does not like, for example, the person speaks loudly, the person is, for whatever reason, or a dog barking, a siren in the neighborhood, a plane flying over, sometimes a very, very high-pitched sound which we are not tuned into, or a very low-pitched sound. See, these are auditory stimuli for the child, but they are also sensory issues. What triggered the behavior? So it's antecedent, what preceded the behavior. The behavior then becomes, maybe the child starts running up and down, and maybe closing his ears, and maybe humming, going ooh. Maybe he retreats to a corner, to another room, somewhere else, or he starts getting hyperactive. Maybe we're calling that bad behavior, but he's just trying to express, because he's nonverbal or he's challenged behaviorally. He's immediately responding to that antecedent. And the third thing to observe is the consequence. What happened as a result of his behavior? Did we give into it? Did we understand it and try to redirect his, or calm him, or redirect his behavior to something that's acceptable, or make him maybe give him we can ask him to just count to 10, breathe heavily, breathe and count to 10, reassure him, calm him down, notice. A lot happens with noticing, so the antecedent is very, very important. All too often we're looking at B, the behavior, and then there's the lack of consistency on our part. That's the consistency I can't underscore enough about. Everybody needs to speak the same language to the child. That as a consequence, we cannot provide the consequence before the behavior. We can notice the behavior and try to notice what happened before that, and then we have to be responsible enough to, if it's calming that's required, then we do that. If it is explanation that's required, if it is moving the antecedent out for a while, so that he knows we are intervening, and then maybe slowly we face this visitor, for example, this visitor in proximity. Maybe the person can visit but be in another room, and over the next few days, when we see the person at another place, when we see the person at perhaps the shopping center or in a public place, and then this person can perhaps be can greet, then the exchange of greeting can take place. Maybe an exchange of a word, maybe exchange of a gift, exchange of a smile, gesture of friendship. This is how, for example, just on the basis of that visitor and the child overreacting, in time, if we're going to guide the child and guide this person, so the relationship is built, not for the sake of anything, but because we are going to intervene as responsible caregivers, responsible parents, responsible teachers. So that's just an example of the ABC analysis, how we can responsibly guide the child and make use of the cues that we are getting from him in his behavior.
That's something very insightful, Mr. Ryan. The ABC behavior, because as you stated very clearly, when the parents, they look at the behavior, they either get very overwhelmed, they label the child, nothing can be done, they get demotivated. But that's a very fresh perspective of looking at it. The ABC, the antecedent as well, and also the consequence. Yeah. So I guess we'll be discussing more about this in the coming week.